Thank you. Good morning. I would like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Ian Mann, and I'm joined on the panel today with Mr. Kent Seelan and Ms. Diane Knight. The assessment department personnel is Mr. Jonathan Spacek, and the administrative personnel is Ms. Fran Picoto. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all of the applications have been heard. The Board will then deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 6 on our docket today. Ms. Picoto, will you please affirm the assessor's and the applicant's testimony?
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Jonathan Spacek.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Trevor Smith.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spacek, then, if we can turn to the first matter on the docket. It is for the roll year of 2023 and the street address of 3680 Portage Avenue. If you could introduce the property, please, and give us your evidence.
Yes, no problem, Mr. Chair. Thank you. We're just reloading. I believe this is it. So, all right, we are looking at file number 24-3831. We have the 2023 business assessment for 3680 Portage Avenue. This is just east of the Perimeter Highway on Portage. We have Crown Auto Body and Glass West in the location. We have a total annual rental value of $143,700. We have a total premise area for this tenant of 7,200 square feet and an overall ARV of $19.96. This, if you look at the middle of my sheet, is based on the base ARV per square foot of $17.65, which you can think of as a net rent for the space, and the occupancy costs for the different areas of the building. So we have heat at 60 cents a square foot for 7,200 square feet, electricity at $1.30 for 7,200 square feet, water at 25 cents a square foot for 7,200 square feet, and then a portion of the building is air conditioned at 35 cents a square foot for 3,210 square feet. When you add these total occupancy costs, you get the total annual rental value for 2023 of $143,700. Today, I am asking to maintain that ARV. This, just for some backstory on this property, this tenant, we had a different tenant in the property, and the new tenant went into the property before 2023, but they were put in effectively January 1st, 2023, and then that gives the owner or tenant ability to appeal. So that's why today you have the 2023 and the 2025 under appeal. We will be doing the 2025 next. So for 2023, what I did, I looked, it wasn't actually appealed in 2023, but 2024, the realty for the property was appealed. There was a reduction on the property by the Board of Revision, but the City of Winnipeg did appeal that. So the 2024 realty is currently under appeal by the city of Winnipeg. And in a case like this, I am asking to maintain the 2023 ARV. You will notice I've included on page 2 and page 3 some comparables that were used for that realty cycle. So this property, we have it labeled as a BSG. It is a auto body and glass, so it's more of a repair shop. We have had properties like this as dealerships in the past, but I believe the vehicle service garage is the current and most up to date with to do with realty. So that's where the annual rental value rent is being derived from. So I've included the 2020 comparable properties for the 2020 rental rates, as that's when the reference period is for 2023. So we have included 5 comparables. Again, these are franchised style Fountain Tires, Boyd Auto Bodies. You can see they range from $15 to $23, and they're 2,000 to 8,000 square feet. And I've also included, just for more of the retail portion on page 3, our VCD rent comparables. So these are just for anybody that's had auto body dealership appeals in the past. This cycle, it's our 2020, all our net rents up to 2020 that are for retail spaces. So larger retail stores, that would be, try to show what the retail portion or the service desk portion of the building could be rented for in general. So again, we have 28 comparables for 2020, wide range of rents across the city, larger areas, 7,000 to 28,000 square feet. Again, just a general reference for a range of retail rents across the city, but the average comes to $1,883, weighted average $1,801, median $18.27. So yeah, today I asked to confirm the 2023 ARV at 143,700. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just a few questions here. So just to confirm the occupancy costs, looking at this property, total 7,200 square feet. The air-conditioned area of that is 3,210 square feet, I see. So less than 50%.
Correct.
Okay. And I note here the base ARV for 20, that the model, this is all model driven, I'm assuming?
Correct.
Okay, so the base ARV for 2023 that the model derived was 1,765, and then for the same property without changes for 2025, we have a base ARV of 1,551. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, from my understanding, rental rates did drop from 2020 to 2023. Specifically, why, what exactly changed for, I can't tell you exactly what the model did for based on the changes, but that's the rental changes that happened from 2020 to 2023 to 2025.
Okay, and as you noted, the city is aware that the 2024 realty was appealed and reduced to based on a net rent of $12.50 a square foot.
Yeah, I believe you in the exact amount.
Okay. And then just having a quick look here, so we've all done a lot of these, I'm sure, this cycle and past cycles. So when I look at the rental comparables, we have a property here that is a vehicle service garage, correct? It's not an automotive auto dealer?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And in looking at the comparables that are provided, so page 2 is the automotive service garages, and then we have big box rental comparables, 28 of them on page 3. Just wondering, as this is not CMVCD, an auto dealer, just wondering why those were included and if that is taken into account by the model and would contribute to the base ARV rent.
No, just trying to show the range of retail comparables across the city for if any of this property was considered to be retail at all, then at least the board can see what a range of rental rates are for these style of properties at these sizes.
Okay, and the property itself is 7,200 square feet, and those are typically in the range of 20,000 plus, is that fair to
Yeah,
say?
absolutely. There's a 7,000, 10,000, but there are some larger ones on there as well.
So we're putting, is it fair to say we should put very little weight on these big box rents in comparison to the subject?
Yeah, you can put as much weight as you think makes sense.
Okay. Final questions, I guess. So just looking at page number 2, the vehicle service garage comparables. So 1064 McPhillips, I believe that was a Fountain Tire on McPhillips. Little over half the size of the subject.
Correct.
Okay. And would economies of scale come into play?
If they were exactly the same buildings and, economies of scale, larger size tends to rent for less in the theory.
And then comp numbers 3 and 4, 107 Vermilion and 20 Lakewood. Those are both in the Southdale Center Power Center, correct? Lakewood at Fairmont.
That is true.
And that would be a power center node that's anchored by Walmart, Canadian Tire, Co-op Foods, Shoppers Drug Mart, Manitoba Liquor Commission, Giant Tiger, Shoppers, etc. Correct?
Correct.
And that would tend to drive higher rental rates for all other tenancies on that property, correct?
I believe that could be true.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan, have you any questions?
Yes, just to confirm the space that's 3,210 square feet, is that specifically office space here?
I can't tell you exactly how it was split up. Some of these properties, I'm sure Mr. Smith will have a better idea exactly what is air conditioned. But yeah, usually the reception service, like desk area where you go in to these buildings, and the office areas are usually the air conditioned portion.
Thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, questions?
No, sir.
I do, Mr. Spacek. With respect to your comparables, I believe you said comp 1 or comparable 1 on page 2 was a Fountain Tire. Some of the others were, I believe you said all of the others were chain type vehicle service garages?
Yeah, we have Fountain Tire, Midas Auto is 2, Fountain Tire number 3, Boyd Auto Body number 4, and a Mr. Lube is number 5.
Okay, and this, the subject property is a Crown Auto Body. Is that affiliated with the Crown dealerships, Crown car dealerships in Winnipeg, or do you know?
I don't know for certain. I would assume so, but I believe Mr. Smith would be more accurate for that question.
Okay. The average year built as well, you have that on all of your comparables ranging from 1967 through 1998. Do you have I think that's what that is. Do you have the year built for this premise?
Yes, I do. It was built in 1988.
And finally, and this is no, I'm not gonna. I don't need to know the land plan of that. I've got the photos on the other brief. So thank you very much. I don't have anything further. Mr. Smith, your evidence, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So as already noted, the subject property 2024 realty was under appeal before the border revision, and that realty appeal was decided by the Board of Revision based on our calculated NOI for the subject property, which was based on a net rental rate of $12.50 a square foot. This is shown to you on my pages 27 and 30 of the addenda of this brief. So you do have that background here. Subject property is a auto body and glass center. It is a collision repair center, and it is associated with the Crown Auto Group of the city. This is one of their repair facilities within the city. So that is the background for it. I will take you to my page number 3. You can see a bit of background on the property. I have the age at 2010. That is incorrect. It was built in 88 with some updating since that time, which is what the 2010 reflected. But the original structure is from 1988, as Jonathan indicated. It is just under an acre in size. We have a land to plan area ratio of 5.69 to 1, which is relatively small for having available space for storing autos in for repair, and a total leasable area of 7,200 square feet. And this was originally an auto dealership. Believe it or not, that's 7,200 square feet, built in 88. Times were very different back then. And so the structure is no longer of use for that particular use. And it has phased out into this other automotive use. You'll see that in the photos that I have of the property, beginning on page number 4. You have a couple of the exterior on pages 4 and 5, and you get into the interior on page number 6. So there's a very limited amount of office and waiting area at the front of the building, as you can see on my page number 6, with the space shown there. That would be the area that is air conditioned nearly exclusively with these automotive service garages. You have air conditioning for only the office area and say reception and waiting area, with the balance of the property being unair conditioned. This will come up in later files that we deal with here today. So as you can note, you have a very small front area and then the service area at the back. On pages 7 and 8, site is shown on page 9, and the location on West Portage on page 10, nearly out to the perimeter. We do have some discussion with regard to the automotive industry. However, that is more in reference to automotive dealerships, not repair. So I won't go through that today. We do have text again regarding dealerships on page number 12. And we'll largely skip that. But one of the points that I should raise, I guess, is the city has included big box retail rents for this particular property, and I think one of the other ones in no way is either the location, the structure, or the potential draw for tenants equal at all. None of these big box tenancies would choose to locate in facilities such as this, in a location such as this. So the rental rates that are shown there are not comparable to the subject property. I go through a great deal of detail on that in my brief. I'm not going to cover that today. Needless to say, it's not a direct one-to-one comparison. What we're looking at here are vehicle service garages, and that is exclusively what we should be looking at with regard to comparable rental rates. So let's move on to my valuation of the subject property, given that it does not have an arm's length lease, we need to look to the market for comparable automotive rents. That's what we have done on page number 15. And on to page number 16. These range throughout the city. Typically, they are well located, on major thoroughfares within the city with good visibility, and are in that typical automotive repair size range of call it 5 to 8,000 square feet, 5 to 9,000 square feet. There's obviously some variation on that. They range in terms of age. What this shows you is an overall view of the market. You're not going to find 10 comps on West Portage that were built in 88 of a similar size, et cetera, et cetera. We need to look at the broad market, see what it tells us, and then make the most appropriate comparison. So looking at our automotive rental rate comparable chart on page number 15. I'm not going to run through these one by one by any means, but there are some that are informative. I will point you to start with number 5, 123 Fort. This is kind of the upper end of the range. 8,900 square feet. This is a Fountain Tire location. Yes, it was built in 1947, but that is somewhat irrelevant given where it's located. It is located a half block north of Broadway, just in from Main Street on Fort. So ideal location for downtown workers to drop off their car for repair and pick it up at the end of the day. That, given its location downtown, drives a very high rental rate of $13 a square foot, as you can see. Beyond that, we have, let's look, we have 750 Nairn Auto Service, $9.23 a square foot. Our more recent ones are in that $8 to $11 per square foot range. Moving on to page number 16, they do tend to follow that trend. So our overall range is that from that low end of, call it $7 a square foot, up to a high end of $13 per square foot. Looking at the location of the property, the structure itself, its size, and what that would drive on the marketplace, we have placed a net rental rate of $12.50 per square foot on the subject property for valuation. So that produces the $90,000 in income, and we aren't disputing the estimated expenses. So when you total those, we come to a final ARV of $106,600. We've included the income and expense for the subject property, as well as the 2024 Board of Revision order based on our valuation at $12.50 per square foot for the subject property. And that is my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Spacek, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Seelan, any questions?
It's just a quick clarification question on your page 18. In the top paragraph.
Yeah.
That you were using a rental rate of $11.50 per square foot.
Yeah, you caught my typo.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
$12.50. I
Thank you.
apologize for that.
No issues, just want to clarify. Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. my questions with respect to the comparables at page 15 and 16, I see some of them have, or most of them have the name of the company, but some of them are auto repair, auto sales. Are these chain or national chains? Are they affiliated with other, say, dealership groups that are practicing or selling in the city?
It does vary. As you can see, I did note where what the specific tenancy was in some of them, such as Fountain Tire, Absolute Auto Guard. Many of them are independent repair shops that again are well located on your Pemmidas, McPhillips, Main Streets, etc. So no, they wouldn't be associated with your major auto groups because the major auto groups own their properties, so there wouldn't be any arm's length leases in place to derive from those facilities.
Okay, and I know that I recall that Mr. Spacek had included a Midas. Are those typically, and if you can't answer that, that's fine, but are those typically owned by the owner occupied, or are those typically leased?
Those are typically leased, not always, but for the most part, you do find that they are rented facilities.
Okay, and an auto or vehicle service garage that is conducting mechanical repairs, engine repairs, things like that, would be a different business model, would it not, than the Crown Acura, the Crown auto repair, auto body and glass?
Well, they are different, and I mean I think that speaks to the challenge in getting perfect comparables, right? As I said, we're not going to find 10 comparables of auto collision on West Portage of the same size and age, etc. Right? So what we're looking at is the spread, and ultimately we're valuing the real estate and not the business model. So
right,
we do have a spread of whether these are automotive service garages and or collision centers, but they are valued in the same fashion under the same model by the city of Winnipeg. They're approached identically by their model. And while I grant you that it is a little bit different in terms of the service that is provided, ultimately the real estate is what we're looking to value.
Right. Okay, thank you. I don't have anything further. Mr. Spacek, any summary? You're muted, Mr. Spacek.
Yeah, just no need for summary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith, any summary?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Then, having heard the evidence, we will conclude this matter and move on to the next item on the list. Number 2 is also 3680 Portage Avenue, the roll year of 2025. If you can please provide your evidence on that, Mr. Spacek.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We are looking at file number 24-4997. This is the 2025 business assessment for 3680 Portage Avenue. We have a total ARV of 129,660. Total area of premise 7,200 square feet. Overall ARV for this year is 1801. If we go down to the middle of the page, you will see that is made up of a base ARV of 1551. And then the occupancy costs have slightly changed for a total occupancy cost of 18,004. And we have a total ARV of 129,660. You'll notice auto filled was a subject lease. Again, this is a book rent in place, so I'm putting no weight on it, but it is reported by the owners. They report a book rent of 1550 a square foot. If you notice on page 1 of 4, so at the bottom, I'm asking recommendation maintain 2025 ARV at 129,660,000. Again, on page 2, I've included comparables. We have our 2025 retail comparables from across the street at 3647 Portage, a range of retail spaces. total average of 1778, and we have 3 vehicle service garage comparables, similar to last time with the updated net rents in place of $16, $21, and $22 for an average of $19.67. I've also included on page 3 and 4 the 2025 border revision decision. This property was heard in 2025. It was confirmed at the border revision at that rental rate of $15.51. So again, today I'm asking to maintain the 2025 ARV at $129,660. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Spacek. Mr. Smith, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple. Again, looking at the rental comparables. So page number 2, the retail comparables at the top. 6 out of the, well, how many do we have there? All but 2 of these are on the former Unicity redevelopment. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that would be a big box retail development anchored by Walmart, Sobeys, Canadian Tire, Shoppers, Sleep Country, etc. Correct?
True, yes.
And that would, having anchors such as that, the entire model, of course, drives higher rental rates. Would that be fair to say?
I would agree, true.
Okay. And then again, looking at the bottom, the VSG comparables, so comp 2 and 3, these are the same ones that were in the Southdale Center Power Center node, correct?
True.
Okay. Those are all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Knight, questions? No, sorry, Ms. Knight, you're
I know
muted.
I'm coming. I know it took me a while to get
It's the
there.
same as
Sorry.
me. Yeah.
Nothing.
I thought you were
Sorry.
contemplating.
I know I'm using a different laptop today and it's just crazy, but whatever. Sorry.
That's fine. Hey, questions?
No.
Okay. Mr. Seelan, have you any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And I don't have any questions. Well, other than this is model driven again as well. I believe you said.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Smith, your evidence, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I didn't ask this as a question, so I'll just mention it up front. The 2023 modeled base rent for the subject property was $17.65, and now we have a 2025 base rent via the model of $15.51. Property hasn't changed, and we don't see in the marketplace that rental rates are truly going down for this particular type of property over that period of time. It just speaks to the overall accuracy of the model with regard to this type of property. Looking at the subject property, we've gone through all of the detail. Basically, you've seen the photos, nothing has changed. In the interim, it's exactly the same in exactly the same location. Our comparables on page number 15 have been updated to take into account the 2025 assessment timeframe. So if you look at the start dates of the rental comparables, we have a lot of newer ones than the 2023 presentation. But again, they typically, while they have not increased or decreased, they've typically stayed in that same range that we were looking at before. So we can have a quick look at a couple of these. The 2 topmost ones are collision centers. Number 120 King Edward Street. This is just north of Portage Avenue on Route 90 there. little larger than the subject, well, about double the size of the subject at 15,000 square feet. Built in 1970, 2018 lease at $8.50 per square foot. And that is for a collision center. Now, it's not as ideal a location as the subject. It is considerably larger, hence the rental rate is towards the lower end at $8.50 a square foot. I would argue that the subject, given its size and location, would typically draw a greater rental rate than that. Also, the start date in 2018. While it carries it through the valuation date, there would be an adjustment there, an upwards adjustment. So $8.50 certainly kind of towards the lower end, but not the lower end. Similarly, well, I'm going to skip over 1870. That's more appropriate to some of the larger ones. 2645 Pembina Highway, 3,000 square feet, so smaller than the subject. Start date in 2022, 3-year lease at $11.28 a square foot, built in 87. We have quite a number here. So I'm not, again, going to go through each of these. What I will point out, a very well located facility on Regent numbers 4 through 6, 1384 Regent. This is kind of a automotive service strip mall, so to speak. It's right adjacent to auto dealers. Built in 87, we have 3 leases there, ranging between $7.94 and $12 a square foot for smaller space. Beginning in 2018 and 2019. Similarly, 2479 Pembina, 5,600 square feet, $10.71 a square foot. Very well located at the corner of Pembina and Bison Drive. Many of the others remain the same. We can discuss further if you want. But typically they are falling again within that range of $7 to $13 per square foot at the very upper end of the range. So we have kept our rental rate stable as the market is indicating that that is appropriate. So on page number 21, this is summarized. 1250 times the 7,200 square feet gives us our potential annual income of $90,000. We're not in dispute regarding the expenses. So the overall ARV comes to $108,000. The addendum materials include the income and expense and the 2024 realty decision, and the 2025 realty decision was confirmed at the board, and we have appealed that to the municipal board. I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Spacek, questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Seelan, questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Ms. Knight, questions? And again, you're muted, Ms. Knight.
I'm coming. Sorry, my husband was leaving, so I put it on mute.
Oh, that's okay.
I just have a question in regards to the page where it says estimate of annual income. Up at the top, you have annual rental income of 86,400 there. Adding in the totals to come up to 108. On the page before, it's got 90,000. So which is the actual rent?
It's the 90,000. And I believe.
So those
should be
heat, the
correct,
hydro,
but-
the water, the air conditioning, that's added up incorrectly then?
No, it shouldn't be.
I don't
Just
have a
give me
calculator,
moment
so that's
here.
why I'm asking.
Yeah. Let me run through it quickly. So it is 90,000.
Okay,
So yes, it should indicate 90,000 on
okay.
22. I'm
Just
sorry.
making sure which is which. That was all. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Nothing further, Ms. Knight?
No,
Okay, I just have a couple of questions with respect to the comps, Mr. Smith, that you've used. The start date and the term on some of the comps have certainly would have expired by this. Are the new leases, or are there new leases in place, particularly with respect to your comparable number 10, 13, 15, and 16? I see that the terms would have expired on the leases between 2020 and 2023 or 20, yeah. Are new leases in place, or do you have those new leases?
So I'm looking at those. So number 10, 1133 Sanford. I don't have access to the updated information on that property. I would assume that, yes, there has been either a renewal or a new tenancy put in place, but I don't have that information. So it would probably be fair to say there might be a very slight upward tick from there upon renewal in the 2019 timeframe, or it might be stable. There, number 13 was the subject property, so no, there won't be anything new there.
Sorry if I can just interrupt. 13 is the subject property. That's 3680. You have a 3680 Pembina. That should be 3680 Portage.
And I do apologize for it. It is actually 3680 Portage. That was a prior tenancy that was in there before the current time frame, the owner. So no, there's no updated information there. And then number 16, 2554 Portage. So that was the former Mercedes dealership at the corner of Pembina and the Bridge Street there, Moray. The keg is across the road. And that was the rental rate for the property as a used auto dealership by Birchwood at that time frame. I don't have access to any updated information on that property since that time frame, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything further. Mr. Spacek, any summary?
No, thank you.
Mr. Smith, any summary?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Then, having heard the evidence, we will conclude that matter and move on to number 3 on the docket. That is a street address of 3965 Portage Avenue, and I think there's a suite number or other number in there of number 60. Mr. Spacek, if you can lead us through your evidence on that, please.
Yep, no problem. We are at file number 24-4989. We have roll number, we have roll year 2025. This is unit 60, 3965 Portage Avenue. Business ID is 5700. This is again Birchwood Collision Center in the Point West Auto Mall. We have a total annual rental value of 570,300. This is 35,454 square feet. Overall ARV per square foot of 1609. This is a combination. You can see the two premises under this building. We have 25,564 square feet in the first row, base ARV of $13.41. And then we have in the second row, 3965 Portage, another portion of the building at 11,890 square footage at $14.33. If we combine it all, you can see on the right side middle, we get the two annual rental values added up to 570,300. I am making a recommendation today to reduce the 2025 ARV from 570,300 to 509,400. You can see how this breaks down on page 2. So page 2 is a breakdown of this. And it's a reduction of the whole property going to $12 a square foot. So you can see from the first premise, 1341 at the top of the page goes to $12. And at the second premise, 1433 square foot goes to $12. These add up to 509,400. So I'm recommending this today, as if you turn to page 4, you will see there was a 2025 decision on this property. The total 2025 realty value was reduced. On page 5, you can see the decision was based on net operating income of 400,176 with a cap rate of 6.9. So what I did was I went through the what that worked out to, and it was with $12 a square foot. So I am recommending we follow the board decision for 2025, use the $12 they used, and reduce the ARV to 509,400. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Have you had an opportunity to consider, or had you seen this recommendation prior to, I guess, the exchange of evidence?
Oh, yes, Mr. Spacek and I have spoken about it. And I certainly appreciate the city doing that, but we do have a dispute regarding the rent.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Spacek, was that the conclusion of your evidence, or did you have anything further to add?
Yeah, that's everything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then, Mr. Smith, questions?
Yes, again, just very briefly, this is all the same rental comparables are present. There's no differences there.
Correct.
Correct. And looking at the air conditioned areas, again, they're a fraction of the overall amount of space. Is that fair to say?
True, yes.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan, questions?
Just curious when this building was built.
You'd have to let me look. That'll take a second. It was built, I guess most of this auto mall was built in approximately 1999 with an addition in 2008. So the 11,890 garage portion was an addition in 2008.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, questions?
No, sir.
And my question was with respect to the Birchwood Auto Mall, but this is part of the Birchwood Auto Mall, part of in the geographic location?
Yes,
Okay.
just off the perimeter and Portage.
Thank you. I don't have anything further. Mr. Smith, your evidence, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So unit 3965 Portage Avenue, this is the Birchwood Collision Center in the Point West Auto Mall, now known as the Birchwood Auto Mall. The background for the property is shown on page number 3. 2023 assessment was reduced by agreement based on the realty decision, I believe, which will match closely what we've done here today. And there are differences, of course, with regard to properties within the Point West Auto Mall. I'll try and be as concise as I can on those. As mentioned, the property was built in 2 stages. The original part was built in 1999, 22,239 square feet, with an addition in 2008 of 11,890 square feet. Simply in addition to the garage area at the rear of the property. So we have an overall leasable area of the 35,000 shown at the bottom, which includes a mezzanine area. Photos begin on page number 4. Couple of the exterior, pretty basic. 1 or 2 of the reception area. There's a small accounting and office facility at the front. And that's essentially it, with some change rooms and lunch rooms, etc. The balance of the property is, of course, the collision center. The description of this is on pages 7 and 8. If you wish to go through it, I will skip over that for our purposes. And we can come to the differences with regard to a property located in the Birchwood Auto Mall versus other locations. So in your standard property location in the city, be that street front on McPhillips or Portage or Pembina or what have you, you are in a situation where you your responsibilities essentially end at the edge of your property. You don't pay for directly pay for repair of the infrastructure components that are present in the city infrastructure in front of your place. So on Portage Avenue, you're not paying to repair the potholes every year on the property. You're not paying to change the lights, to fix the drainage, to replace these components over the long term. In the situation of the Point West Auto Park, when the property was developed, all of this responsibility was offloaded onto the developer and long-term onto the condominium corporation that is the structure for the Point West / Birchwood Auto Park. So in the Birchwood Auto Park, the condo corp and developer had to pay to put in all of the servicing for the development in the first place. And over the long term, they're also responsible for the cost of maintaining and servicing that on an annual basis. So your typical annual costs, snow clearing, repairs, replacement of bulbs, things of that nature. And then the long-term cost of replacing those components entirely. That also includes items such as drainage and all the other typical infrastructure components that you have. So when you look at it on an apples to apples basis, if you locate within the Birchwood Auto Park, you have these additional costs that you would face as a tenant that you would not face in any other location, any other standard location within the city. So that has an impact on the overall cost of you locating in that particular location, and would have an impact on what you would be willing to pay to locate in that particular location as well. Now, this has gone through a very extensive Board of Revision presentation in this cycle and in past cycles, going through this detail extensively. And it was decided in the 2025 decision for the Point West Auto Park that yes, that infrastructure component should be taken into account with regard to the overall valuation of the property. There's also an equity issue there at play, looking at two similar developments where those particular infrastructure costs are borne by the condominium corporation and the tenants and owners of those spaces themselves. So in those situations, the city had valued the property where those additional costs were taken into account in their model. They were specifically taken into account as individual line items in the valuation. The city had removed that over the last at least 3 cycles, perhaps 4 cycles for Point West Auto Park, and thereby created an inequity in their valuation of these particular properties. So this has now been rectified for the 2025 year by the Board of Revision in their decision, and should be carried forward in looking at the valuation of the properties in this particular location. So in regards to the business assessment, the way to take that into account essentially is to look at what an appropriate rental rate for the subject property would be in a more standard location, and then make the appropriate reduction from that to that rental rate to arrive at a fair market value that a tenant would be willing to pay. on the open market. So that's the background. The description of the property is there for you, site description on page number 9, and the image on page number 10, as well as the location on page number 11. Now I'll speak briefly about the location. Point West Auto Park is where it is because they for a number of reasons. Birchwood intended to, yes, develop an auto park, but they needed the amount of land to develop the large number of auto dealerships that they were building. That land was not located within the typical, city of Winnipeg confines. This is within the city of Winnipeg, obviously, but it's outside of the perimeter and in an area that is certainly largely undeveloped. Yes, there are residential areas to the south. Yes, there is just very recently and post-reference essentially some budding development to the west of the property, but outside of that you're looking at the racetrack, you're looking at Assiniboia Downs, and that's largely it. It's not located within the developed confines of the city. It doesn't have other supportive retail driving you past that particular location. In terms of location for a collision center, it is awkward, I will say. You have to drive out there. Now, certainly some people live on the west side of the city, so it's more convenient. But if you live anywhere else, it is a rather long drive. You then catch the shuttle into work, and at the end of the day, you have to catch the shuttle back. It's a rather long process and does have an impact on their overall business in that location. Let's move on. Page 13. My comparables remain the same as they did in our earlier 2025 appeal that we just covered on prior property. We are looking at a significantly larger building, however, built in 2 stages, so 1999 and 2008, and we have a total of just over 35,000 square feet. So certainly one of the larger collision centers in the city. Economies of scale do come into play. That is balanced somewhat by there is obviously a newer portion to the building, and it is well constructed, etc. So we're taking into account the overall impact of all of the facets of the property when we look at an appropriate rental rate to be applied to the subject property. So if you flip forward, you can see on page number 19 that we have applied a net rental rate of $11 per square foot to the subject property in our valuation, taking into account all of the detail that I've just presented to you here. Now that's well within the range of the comparables that we have. And when we look at the size of the subject at 35,000 square feet, it's more than double the largest of the comparables that are out there. So looking quickly at our comps, we really only have 2 comps, number 1 and 2, that are in any kind of size range comparable to the subject. They're at $850 for the Boyd on Route 90 in 2018, which would have increased somewhat. And then we have $1015 for a repair facility of just under 18,000 square feet. Also on King Edward 2019 lease. That would also be somewhat inferior to the subject property. So we have taken all of this into account, applied $11 per square foot to the subject property, added in the expenses, and this gives us our final ARV of $465,730. Now, we have appealed the 2025 realty decision of the Board of Revision to the municipal board as well, just for information. That is my presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Spacek, questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ms. Knight, have you questions?
Yeah, just in the expenses, you've got 75,649 and the city has 85,950. Yours are actual?
Give me a moment. I will look at what the city has versus what we have. So
They've got-
our figures are taken directly from the city of Winnipeg's website. In fact, we didn't type them out again, so it should be identical.
But they're not.
Area 1. Area 8. So it's not indicating the amount there, 23,564. So bear with me for just a moment and I will do some quick addition. So the first box comes to $50,652. Again, taken directly from the city of Winnipeg's business assessment page, and then we have $25,087. So comes to the 75. Okay, I have $75,739. So a marginal difference from the 649 that I had there. I don't
Yeah, the
have
city,
further
the city has
insight
80,
into-
the
Sorry?
city has 85,950. So that's why I'm just asking, because they're out about 10 grand.
Yeah, Jonathan, can you speak to that? I don't see the background on the figures there necessarily. So again, when you go into the business assessment website and look up your roll number, it gives you this detail. And these boxes that you see there are image grabs from that. So that is it should be accurate. And I have no further insight into what the city's figures are there. Did you have that background, Jonathan?
I do not have it in front of me. I just have what I have. I cannot speak to any difference right now.
I think there shouldn't be any difference in the.
Because normally your expenses are the same going throughout everything. That's why I'm just curious why these are different.
Yeah, I do see a difference now, and I apologize for that. I am looking at the rates, and the rates are actually in this screen grab are from the 2023 evaluation, I believe. So I apologize. I suggest we go with the city's number.
Okay, so we're gonna change that to 85,950.
That's correct. If that's
So then your total goes up.
my total would go up appropriately, yes.
So what would the new total be?
What was the amount again? 85.
85,950 plus
Okay.
389,994.
I do
Right.
apologize. I have a different number. I have 83,950.
You have a different number.
Oh, sorry, maybe I got it. I added it. Maybe I added it wrong.
I think it is 83,950.
Sorry.
Expenses.
83. Okay. So that would come to a non-rounded ARV of 473,944.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan, have you any questions?
Actually, all my questions have been asked and answered. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I was going to be asking why you had different amounts for the fences, but it seems that we've sorted that out as a group, so I don't have anything more. Mr. Spacek, any summary?
I'm fine without a summary. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, any summary?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. Then, having heard the evidence on that matter, we will conclude it. And does anyone need a 5-minute break to grab another coffee or a glass of water or anything?
That would be appreciated.
Okay, then if it's 10:08, if we can be back by 10:15.
Thank you so much. Be right back.
Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome back. I'd like to call this meeting back to order, please. And if we can move to number 4 on the docket, that's the street address of 1100 Templeton. Mr. Spacek, if you can provide your evidence on that matter, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we are looking at file number 24-4772, roll year 2025. We're at 1100 Templeton Avenue, business assessment ID 54467. We have a 330,600 ARV for 2025. This is based on 18,500 square feet with an overall ARV per square foot of $17.87. This is base ARV model driven at $15.17 plus a total occupancy cost of $49,950. This property was heard. It's again another collision vehicle service center. It also, so there's two, we will hear about two premises today. One is the Jim Gauthier Buick GMC. That's the one we're looking at now. We have on page 3 and 4, the realty decision. This was heard in 2025. There was a reduction in place that brought the rent per square foot to $11.50 for the whole property. So, again, I'm respecting that decision on this one. So on page 2, I've included a workup that reduces the total rate from $15.17 to $11.50. And again, you'll see this is a total reduction from 330,600 to 262,680. The one point of contention, and it's not necessarily a point of contention, it was brought up when Trevor and I are speaking. You'll notice the AC in this property, the air conditioning compared to the others, it's using the whole 18,500. Mr. Smith let me know, and it's not that I don't disagree with them, it's that I just have no factual floor plans or anything showing what square footage isn't AC'd. So I was unable to make an adjustment on my end with such short notice. I tried to look up floor plans. I was unable to determine what area isn't air conditioned. So you will notice that my recommendation includes the full air conditioning for the whole space. Again, not disagreeing that some should be taken off for air conditioning. I had nothing in front of me to show what should be taken off. So my recommendation includes the full AC and using the 1150 from that decision from the 2025 border revision. So again, I'm asking for the ARV to be reduced from 330,600 to 262,680. Hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Smith, it sounds as though you're aware of the reduction and the issue is one of the air conditioning. Is that correct? Or is there more to it than that?
No, that is correct.
Okay, then we'll turn it over to you for questions then. Mr. Smith, questions of Mr. Spacek?
Well, they're sure. Just trying to think of how to properly frame it. So we've had the discussion regarding air conditioning, and you would agree that the whole building is not air conditioned?
On this property?
Yes.
I don't know if it's the whole isn't. I can't confirm, but I would assume that we've had a range of buildings with air conditioning reduced. I would agree that in most cases, these properties, the service area isn't air conditioned.
Right. So, but we did have the discussion where I confirmed that I had had the direct conversation with general manager of the property, and the service area is not air conditioned, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't
And
have
if,
the breakout.
yeah,
of,
if I had a, yeah, absolutely.
space
I
around
agree.
to us. Okay.
I agree.
That's
I
my
just
only
need
question.
I just need some sort of actual number confirmed, which I was unable to ascertain.
Absolutely, I fully understand. That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Seelan?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And I don't have any questions. So, Mr. Smith, your evidence, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we are not in great agreement with the city here. The 2025 realty appeal was held and was decided based on our net operating income, which included a net rental rate of $11.50 per square foot for the subject property. For the full 48,944 square feet. Now that is shown to you on my, what would that be? 16, 17, 18, pages 16 through 18, I guess, of my addenda. The city is in agreement with that at $11.50 per square foot. We have used the same figure in our analysis of the subject property for this business assessment, as it is appropriate. Background is shown for you on page 3. I'll just point out a couple of things here and not take up a lot of time. This building built in 2018 versus the Birchwood property that we were just dealing with, unit 60, built in 99 and 2008. That one was a total of 35,000. This one is, again, slightly larger at the overall size of, what did I indicate it was, 48,000, so slightly larger. But very similar in terms of being one of the larger collision centers in the city. We have a breakout into 2 different areas for business purposes, this one being 18.5, but really we're looking at the building as a whole. And so we have applied the same net rental rate that we did in the realty of $11.50 a square foot. All of our rental rate comps remain the same. And for air conditioning, what I'll indicate here is that both the city and I are incorrect, and we both know that we're incorrect. I was unable in the short time frame available to get a floor plan breaking out the office area from the service area of the building. So my figure of 1 square foot, which you typically see when there's no air conditioning, is not accurate. Equally, the city's figure of the entire building being air conditioned is also inaccurate. In my direct discussion with the general manager, he was able to confirm that the service area is at least 60% of the overall leasable area of the building. Probably somewhat larger than that, but again, he wasn't able to supply in the short time frame available floor plans in order to confirm that number. So I have gone with the figure that I have. The city has used the figure that they have. The real answer is somewhere in the middle. And unfortunately, we can't be more accurate than that today. That is my presentation. And again, I would just point out that we were using $11.50 per square foot for this particular property. And we've used $11 per square foot for the reasons indicated for the collision center at Birchwood, unit 60, 39, 65. That is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spacek, questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Seelan?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Ms. Knight?
So just to confirm with both of you, the city's asking for 262,680 and the applicant's asking for 256, correct?
My number is correct, 262,680.
Okay. Okay, that's all and the applicant is 256,040.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And I think I've got the general gist of it. It's not 100% air conditioned. It's not 0% air conditioned. It's partly air conditioned. Is that
It's,
okay?
yeah, most of these are.
Yeah, most of it is unair conditioned, so the service area is unair conditioned as nearly exclusively these properties are. But I don't have the breakout of that area for you. But it is at least 60% of the overall area.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything further. Mr. Spacek, any summary?
No need for summary, thank you.
Mr. Smith, summary?
No, thank you.
Then, having heard the evidence, we will conclude that matter and move on to number 5 on the docket, which is also a street address of 1100 Templeton. And Mr. Spacek, if you can please give us your evidence on this one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We are looking at file number 24-4771, roll year 2025. We are still at 1100 Templeton Avenue, but we are in the premise that is now the Jim Gauthier Chevrolet portion. We have 26,572 square feet for a total annual value of 461,040. This is with an overall ARV per square foot of 1735. This is based on a base ARV of 1465 a square foot with full occupancy costs added for 461,040 total again. Exactly same as the last case. I am asking for a reduction based on the 2025 order from 461,040 to 377,340. You can see this work up on page 2. This is reducing the rate from 1465 to 1150 a square foot, and you will notice the full occupancy cost for AC for this portion as well. Exactly the same as we just discussed. I've included the order on page 3 and 4 again, and again, since nothing changed, this is a quick one, but that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Seelan, questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Ms. Knight?
No, sir.
And I don't have any questions. Mr. Smith, I was remiss. I should have asked if you were aware of the reduction. I just made my assumption based on the discussions on the last one, but were you aware of this reduction? And did you have any comments on it before you proceed with your evidence?
Yes, I was aware, and again, same situation, our discrepancy is only over the air conditioning.
Okay, thank you. Then if you can proceed with your evidence, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Identical situation, same property, same age, slightly different size. It has already been decided at the Board of Revision based on our net operating income, which used a net rental rate of $11.50 per square foot for the subject property. So our evaluation is done identically. Again, we have the issue with the air conditioning. And we are equally as incorrect as the city is in our evaluation of the air conditioning component. But again, it's identical situation. A minimum of 60% of the space would be the vehicle collision service area, which is confirmed to be unair conditioned, as these facilities are. So for this 2018 build collision center, total 48,000 plus square feet, we are using the rental rate of $11.50 a square foot with our expenses as indicated on pages 14 and 15. For the cost to occupy, gives us our final ARV of $367,760. I've included the Board of Revision decision and the income and expense. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Spacek, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Knight, questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Seelan?
No questions, Mr. Chair, thank you.
I just would like to confirm, Mr. Smith, this is the same as the last property and that 100% is not air conditioned, but a portion is. We just don't know exactly the amount or the square footage of the air conditioned portion. That's pretty succinct or similar to the last property.
Yes, it would be identical to the last property, essentially. The general manager confirmed that it is unair conditioned and that it would be a minimum of 60% of the space being unair conditioned.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Spacek, any summary?
No need for summary, thank you.
Mr. Smith, any summary?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Then, having heard the evidence, we will conclude that matter and move on to number 6 on the docket. That is the street address of 1412 McPhillips. Mr. Spacek, if you can please give us your evidence on that matter.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are at file number 24-4753, roll year 2025. We have moved down the street to 1412 McPhillips Street, business assessment ID 33336. And we have another collision center, not changing much from today. 1412 McPhillips is right across from Garden City Mall. It is 15,444 square feet of collision center. We have a base ARV of $13.67, plus occupancy costs make the total ARV per square foot $16.01. We have a total annual rental value of $247,260. I am asking to confirm this property. If you look at page 3 and 4, I've included the board order from 2025. This property's realty was confirmed, and I would ask that we follow that order. I've included the same BSG comparables as before, 3 of them on page 2. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spacek. Mr. Smith, questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Knight, questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Seelan?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
And I don't have any questions. Mr. Smith, your evidence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the 2025 realty for the subject property was appealed and confirmed at the Board of Revision. And we have appealed that decision to the municipal board, so that is under appeal. It was one of the few that was not altered. In the collision center sphere that I handle, which is unusual given the circumstances of the property. So looking at 1412 McPhillips Street, the page number 3 gives you a bit of further detail. It's zone C2, built in 1988, so it is a little bit older. Sits on a site of 1.2 acres, total leasable area of 15,500 almost square feet. I didn't work out the land to plan area ratio. I can do that for you there, but it is relatively low in terms of having the ability to store vehicles that are in for service on site, which is a critical component of this particular business. I'll direct you to page number 6 at this time. Just wait for you to get there. So it is a long, narrow building, and you'll see from the photos inside details of this, but it was formerly a car wash. The reason that it is now a collision center is that it was purchased by the Gauthier Group in order to become a collision center, because it is adjacent to their main facility immediately across Maple Glen Drive, where their essentially their head office is located. They needed a collision center in the area. Obviously, it's a developed area. They took the opportunity to buy the adjacent property to themselves and convert it to a collision center. Now, you would not build a collision center such as this on the open market. The layout of it is very inefficient and doesn't maximize their ability to process vehicles, etc. It has limited on-site parking, but it's located where it is, which had some intrinsic value to the particular owner. Now, that's not standalone real estate value, that's value in kind to or rather specific value to that particular owner that would not necessarily or almost certainly wouldn't necessarily translate over to other potential owners in the marketplace or potential occupants in this case for business. So that is the background. The board order is under appeal. Let's look at the photos beginning on page 4. You can see a couple of the exterior. Then we move inside on page number 5, and you can see the long, narrow layout. The vehicles, instead of being perpendicular to the exterior of the property, are on an angle, as you can see, so they can fit more of them in for service. The reason for that is one whole side of the building needs to be dedicated to the circulation space. Typically in a collision center or a service center for an auto dealer, you will have automobiles on both sides of the service area facing the wall perpendicular, with the circulation area in between with drainage in that location. In this instance, given the layout of the property, they are only on the one side, as you can see. There is a small office area, as noted at the bottom of page 5, and you can see the overall site area on page number 6. So that is the background location shown on page 7. And we can move into the valuation itself. So all of our comparables remain the same. We have situation where subject property is in comparison to the properties that we were just dealing with, which were 35 and 48,000 square feet, I believe. This one is just over 15,444 square feet. It is long and narrow. The layout is poor. Storage on site is not optimal, etc. So while it is smaller, typically these aspects of the building do have an impact on the desirability of it from a tenant's point of view. So we have used a rental rate of $11.50 per square foot for the subject property in our valuation for these reasons. That's shown on my page number 15. The cost to occupy, we have no dispute with. And when you add those to the base ARV based on $11.50 a square foot, we come to a rounded ARV of $213,740. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Spacek, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Seelan, questions?
No questions, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
No, sir.
And I don't have any questions. Mr. Spacek, any summary?
No need for summary. Thank you all for your time today.
Mr. Smith, any summary?
No need for a summary. I certainly appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as this is the, we've heard the evidence, so we will conclude this matter, and that was the last matter remaining on the docket. And so this hearing is adjourned. Mr. Spacek, Mr. Smith, thank you very much for your presentations, and you will be advised in fairly short order of the decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you again,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks.